Hey everybody, thanks for joining me. It's Brian, and we're here for our next lesson, which is trading mindset. Today we're going to talk a bit about how we keep our head in the right place in order to make good trading decisions. Now, before we get into that, I always have to let you know that I am not a licensed investment advisor, and I certainly don't pretend to be one here. I'm just showing you information, methods, techniques that I've learned through the years that have helped me along with my trading. If you need to read the full disclaimer, please pause it here and take time to read that. Trading does involve risk, and you should only be trading with risk capital. I can't reiterate that enough. But please take a second to pause the video, read the full disclaimer, and then continue on once you're comfortable with the risk that trading involves. Now, let's go ahead and jump into this. Today we're going to be talking about trading mindset. And I really, truly feel like this is one of the biggest things that leads to the success or failure of aspiring traders. It really comes down to thinking about things in the right way. And a great book to address this is The Disciplined Trader by Mark Douglas. Definitely is a must-read for any trader out there, whether you're beginning or an experienced trader. If you haven't read it, pick it up and get yourself a copy of this and read through it. It's a great resource to help you with your mindset as a trader. One of the key quotes from this book, when you use fear as a resource to limit yourself, you will create the very conditions that you're trying to avoid. And that's really not just in trading, that's in life in general. We get what we focus on. We get more of what we focus on. And if we start focusing on our fears, we're going to create the conditions to make those things come true. It's like target fixating when you're driving. If we start focusing on a thing that we don't want to run into, we're going to run into it. So definitely we need to get in front of those fears. And I feel like a good way to do that is thinking about things the right way, thinking about things in odds and probabilities, and understanding the math behind what we're doing. Now, before you go, oh, math, it's not going to be a math course. Trust me, we're not going to get into that. So some of the key reasons I feel like that traders lose money is probably number one, unrealistic expectations. There's so much marketing hype out there. Every day I get countless numbers of messages into my inbox telling me how I'm going to turn $500 into $50,000, right? So traders read those things, or aspiring traders read those things and think, hey, I'm going to take this small initial investment and I'm going to 20x it, 50x it, 100x it, 1000x it, whatever it might be. They think they're just going to suddenly make a windfall out of nothing in the next couple of days. That's not going to happen. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not going to happen. Can trading be a very rewarding career? Absolutely it can, but you're not going to do it overnight. So set your expectations properly. It's going to take time. The next thing is emotion in trading. We get overly emotional. Humans are emotional creatures, and that's fine. We're never going to get around that. But being able to recognize our emotion, understand our emotion, I think is very key for us. Fear, greed, the need to be right, being overconfident, those things can all lead to bad decision-making, poor decision-making when it comes to trading. If we have the fear, we're not going to follow our plan. If we're getting greedy about, calling that exact top or finding the exact bottom of a trade, we're not going to follow our plan. We might risk too much or risk too little. That need to be right can lead to overtrading. Being overconfident can lead us to make decisions or take trades at times that we have no business being in trades. So all of these things can be kept at bay if we keep ourselves in the right mindset. And I think a great way to defend our mindset is to have an organized trading strategy, to have a good set risk management process, to start thinking in odds and probabilities, and then only trade we're in the right space, when we're not having an emotional day, or we're not distracted. If you've got a lot of things happening around you, you might not be focused on your plan, and you might not be able to think about things in the right method of odds and probabilities, and you might not be able to follow that strategy. And then the final way I think to defend our mindset is to exercise on a regular basis. And before you go, hey Brian, don't tell me what to do. Exercise is key in keeping our minds healthy And I'm not going to bore you with pulling up multiple websites on it, but just going for a walk every day will help get those juices flowing and keep your mind healthy and your mind operating well. So I'm not going to go into depth on all of these. The things I want to focus on today is really in the odds and probabilities section. Previously, we've talked about a strategy, and so in all the videos leading up to this, we've talked about using trend lines, using support resistance, using those very, very simple methods to identify potential areas to trade. And risk management, when we talk about finding the right risk that's right for you, I personally use a maximum risk of 2% per trade, and then I manage my risk by moving my stop loss to a break even or slightly above break even level once that trade moves for me in a 1-to-1 ratio. But we don't need to rehash all of that right now. I really want to get in and talk about the things that I feel like are one of the most key ways of keeping ourselves in check, and that is thinking in odds and probabilities and understanding what the odds are when it comes to trading. Now, if you don't know what odds or probabilities are, taking you back to math class in school, a probability is calculated by looking at the number of desirable outcomes and putting that over the number of possible outcomes. Odds are taking the number of desirable outcomes and putting those over the number of undesirable outcomes. So what they both refer to is chance. They're both giving us a numerical look at the likelihood of an event occurring. So, for example, the probability of flipping a coin and getting heads is 1/2. It's 1/2 because there's two possibilities, right? There's two possible outcomes. There's heads or tails as a possible outcome, and if you're going to flip a coin and get heads, it's 1 over those two possible outcomes. Whereas the odds of getting heads is 1-to-1. There's a head and there's a tail, so it's 1-to-1. There's two potential outcomes, one of each type. But they both kind of refer to the exact same thing. What's the likelihood of something occurring? Now, where does that come into trading? Well, it comes into trading because math always wins. Probabilities, odds, they're pure math. You're never going to beat the math over the long term. You might beat it on a couple of trades, but you're not going to beat it over the long term. The math always works out. Statistics and odds, they always remain true regardless of whether we're talking about a coin flip or a trading system. And understanding how they work and tracking our performance allows us to calculate winning and losing streaks, allows us to see what our expectations are, right? We're able to know what our win and loss ratios are. We know what the overall expectancy of our system is. We can calculate our drawdown. Knowing all of this helps us become better traders. And that's why we should care about it, because we make better decisions when we can think in odds and probabilities, when we can actually know what to expect over the long term by looking at our winning and losing streaks, by looking at our loss ratios, by looking at our expectancy, our drawdown, so on and so forth. I bring this up because here's a real life example. I have a friend that put out an automated trading system, and as he put this trading system out, he very, very clearly told the potential users what the trading system was going to do. He said, hey, this trading system has a drawdown, an expected drawdown, meaning it could lose money up to 15 to 17%. So it's a 15 to 17% drawdown, right? What's going to happen is this system is going to take trades, and many of those trades are going to lose. But when it hits a winning trade, it's going to let those winning trades run. And when the winning trades run, they could run for a considerable amount. So what happens? People signed up, they got into this automated trading process, and it had a win, and then it started taking a losing trade, losing trade, losing trade, losing trade. It would get into a winning trade, but it wouldn't move. It didn't really run. The market wasn't there. The market didn't move that much. So it would close out for a small win, larger loss, small win, large loss, small win, loss. Ultimately, it drew down to about 14 or 15%. People are freaking out when it was drawn down 8%, but really freaking out once it was 15%. People are shutting it off. They're canceling their systems, so on and so forth. Right after that, it hits a win, 35%. did exactly what it was supposed to do. The trading method was doing exactly what it was supposed to do. The folks that understood that were able to think in odds and probabilities, were able to understand the expectancy of the system through how it worked. We're able to understand that it was well within the parameters of the expected drawdown, stuck with it, and were able to realize those larger wins. So they suddenly went from a negative 15 to a positive 15 or 16% on their accounts. And this system will continue to do that. It'll ratchet, pull back a little bit and ratchet up, pull back a little bit and ratchet up. It'll continue to do that. Knowing what to expect when you're trading through the trading history and having a good history of the drawdown, of the win-loss, of the losing streaks, the winning streaks, all of that helps us maintain sanity and make good decisions despite whatever might be happening at this moment. We need to look at things at that larger level. And when we understand odds and probabilities, we can look out at that larger level. It also helps us not fall into the gambler's fallacy, which is another thing I hear from traders all the time and see from traders all the time, is they fall into this gambler's fallacy. What that is the belief that because an event has not occurred for a while, that it's due to occur. And a good example of this is roulette. I used to live in Vegas, and I loved going down to the casinos. I was never a gambler. It's never really. I enjoy gambling recreationally, at times when my friends or family are there. But I have a better time just, grabbing a drink and watching the activity around a roulette table, because the casinos are brilliant. They've put up these signs that show you the outcome of the last spins on that wheel. Shows you the outcome. If it hit red, what number did it hit? Did it hit black? What number did it hit? And it displays graphically. So people are walking by. And do this next time you're at a casino. Just stand by the roulette table for a while and watch people. They'll be walking by, and they'll go, "Oh, my God, dude, it's hit black 3 times in a row. It's got to hit red. It's got to hit red. It's red or black. It's got to come up red next. It's hit 3 times in a row. It's due to hit." And they'll take out their $100 and they'll throw it on the table. Black. "Oh my God, I can't believe that happened." And then they'll do it again. And then pretty soon they're crying because they've lost their cab fare. But which I shouldn't laugh about, but it's a gambler's fallacy. They think that because something hasn't occurred for a while, it's due to hit. But the reality is the odds are the same on that next spin no matter what has happened previously. And that's the same with trading. Sometimes traders go, "Well, I've had 5 losing trades in a row, so this next trade has to be a win." And then they might ratchet up their risk and maybe take a little higher risk because they think that next trade is due to hit for them. And then if that 6th trade doesn't hit, well, God, I've had 6 in a row of losses. I've got to have it. This next one's bound to be a win. So then they bet a little more. They put more risk on the table. Keep in mind the probability, and this is a tough one to stomach sometimes, but the probability of your trade winning or losing is still 50-50. The next trade, no matter what's happened in the 100 trades leading up to it, the next trade and the one after that and the one after that and the one after that are totally independent of every trade you've taken up to that point. The previous trade has no bearing, has no effect on the outcome of the current trade. The probability is still 50-50. You're never going to change that. It's going to win or it's going to lose. You have no way to impact the outcome once you hit the button and take that trade. The probability is 50-50. All we can do is make the right decisions leading up to that point by following a consistent trading plan and using good risk management. But once we click the button, the outcome of that trade is 50-50, and we cannot ever change that. So don't fall into that gambler's fallacy. Understanding odds and probabilities will help you not fall into that gambler's fallacy. Also, distribution of wins and losses is random. That's another thing to keep in mind. Distribution of wins and losses is random, and that's whether you've got a 50-50 win rate or you've got a 90% win rate. How those wins and losses come in are uncontrollable because the outcomes are 50-50 and we can't change that. The math works when we have a large sample size, and this is why it's important to practice for a while to understand what our expectancy is and how we're doing and how our system is working and what to expect from that system, right? But it can only work if you've got a large number of trades. We need to have a large sample size. So, a history of 100 trades is going to be much more meaningful than a trading history of 10 or 20 trades. So the more trades we can get behind us, the more we can practice and practice our method, practice our entries, practice what we're doing from identifying that trade entry placement is going to be, and then also the trade exit placement, because that's what ultimately is dictating our win or our loss, right? But practicing that for quite a while before we actually put live money on the table is very, very important, because that will give us that large sample size so that we can actually understand what to expect once we begin trading. If I have a 50% win rate, that's okay as long as my wins outweigh my losses. I could have a 40% win rate and still make money if I'm trading at, where I'm winning 2.5, 3 times more than I'm losing. So if I have let's say I have an average loss of $100, but I'm winning $300 when I win, I could have a negative win rate but still be a profitable trader. Win rates are kind of meaningless, really. It just gives us something in order to be able to calculate our expectancy based on these other factors that we should be tracking and using in our calculations. Another thing to keep in mind when we're looking at mindset is the market and the math does not care about our feelings. I often hear traders trying to define why the market is doing what it's doing. You go on CNN and these talking heads are up there talking about, blah, 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 the GDP, blah, 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 and this is going to do that, and blah, 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 and the economy and okay, great. They have no idea what's going to happen next, but they get paid a lot of money to talk about it. And they can talk and blow smoke, and sometimes they're going to be right, and sometimes they're going to be wrong. And honestly, that comes out to that random distribution of 50-50. You can say whatever you want to say. You say it enough, and eventually you're going to be right. If you say the sky is falling enough times for long enough, eventually it's going to happen, and you'll be right. So trying to define why the market is doing what it's doing is a futile event. I used to watch the news and anticipate what was going to happen based on the outcome of these certain news events. And when I stopped worrying about that, I became, I don't want to say stress-free, but kind of stress-free. It took so much stress out of my life, because once I understood that what Brian thought about how the news was going to affect the market and just simply traded the market for what it was doing, my life became a lot easier. Not trying to interpret things and worry about the whys, just worry about what the market's doing and take action based on that makes it a much less stressful trading day for you. What should happen and what actually happens are often very, very, very different things. How often, have you seen a very positive number come out for, let's say, the U.S. market, but then the market tanks as opposed to continuing the direction that maybe it, quote, should? It happens about 50% of the time, quite honestly. Worrying about what should happen and what actually happens will create more stress than you really need. As Keynes said, the markets can stay irrational for much longer than you can stay solvent. So what you need to do is just focus on your plan. Focus on your plan, keep a positive outlook, and understand the math of the market and understand the math of your personal performance. And then once you understand those things, you can make decisions that are in your best interest by using the right amount of risk, and then not freaking out when you have these periods that are losing streaks or drawdown periods, because you'll have the history behind it to say, hey, I expect that to happen. That's okay. I know if I keep doing this, the math works out to X, Y, and Z in my favor. So that's it for now. There is no magic trading tool. There is no magic single piece of information that's going to make you a winner. no matter what all of the emails and webinars and seminars you've attended have told you, there is no magic tool. Winning in trading is a combination of astute money management, good trade selection, timing, and then a lot of discipline. The math is basically at the base, and the right mindset is at the base. So always remember that even though you've got a trading edge, the outcome of any trade is still 50-50, and there are no absolutes. Do things the right way. Follow the right process that's going to give you an edge. Know that your edge allows you to win more than you lose, and everything else is futile to worry about. All right. So that's it for me for right now. We'll be back with more lessons, and so just keep following the page, keep following the blog, and keep watching for additional lessons, live streams, and whatnot to come up. And hope you guys continue on with your trading success. Have a great one. Bye.